Come on, Pritch, you can do this. The best news show you've got. Come on. Really sock it to them with the best news you can. Here we go. Stay positive. Smile. 3, 2, 1. And action. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday's edition of the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show. The Pritch is back. So first off, I just want to say a huge thank you to Victor and Jesper for allowing me to take a few days off. It was nice to spend a bit of time with the family, enjoy the heatwave that went off here in the UK, but I'll admit it, I bloody missed you lot. I absolutely hated it. Seeing all those comments come through, especially some of those mean comments saying, yeah, Jesper's doing a better job than Pritch. Why is this CPCN so good this? Oh, I know why. Because Pritch in it. But I'm back. So, like it or lump it, alright? I know you've noticed it. Brand new t-shirt. I just got it sent in the post. The Pedal Dancers sent it me. Nice little cars. Gifts from the Peloton, the Pedal Dancers, thepedaldancers.com. You can go and check out these Heinz inspired t-shirts. They do like a yellow one with different logo and everything on it. It's pretty cool actually. I like it. I mean, it's not as good as a CPC. Anyway, let's get straight onto the news. You don't want to hear about that. Let's get straight onto the news. Check out the t-shirts, link in the description. First up, you know all the news from La Vuelta. We're going to check out the stage 5 later on in show when I've edited that piece of the video. But hey, since when did McLovin become a professional cyclist?
It's not the going with the ladies I care about. It's the coming.
Sticking with La Vuelta news away from the actual stages, and Lotto Soudal have suspended Kevin de Weert after an incident occurred before the Vuelta and a previous warning. That's a tweet from La Flamme Rouge in response to the Sporza tweet with the news about Kevin de Weert's departure from La Vuelta and potentially from Lotto Soudal completely. Now you know the name of the game here on the Chris Pritchard Cycling News Show. Speculation. So let me ask you, why do you think he has been suspended? It sounds to me like there was some sort of potential drunken escapade with Kevin de Weert. Why he decided to get drunk on the eve of La Vuelta and cause potentially, I presume, some sort of scene that required him to be suspended, I do not know. I thought we could speculate on it, but let's not, because, you know, seriously, the man might be going through a lot. We just don't know. So let's not judge. Let's move on to the next story. Next up, transfer news. It seems to be we could have made a whole CPCN solely about transfer news every day. There's loads going off, so let me try and fill you in on all the latest going down in terms of transfer news. And first up, Jan Hurt, currently at Astana, has switched to CCC on a 2-year deal. He's actually rode for CCC in the past, but obviously the previous incarnation of the team back in 2015 to 2017. David Dela Cruz, Kenny Ellison's late replacement at this year's La Vuelta, has made a move from Team Ineos across to Cofidis for 2020. Belgian rider Frederik Friesen has just re-signed with Lotto Soudal to extend his contract by a further 2 years. That's going to keep him with the Belgium squad to at least the end of 2021. So that's your transfer news. However, the biggest rumour going around right now is the acquisition of potentially Mark Cavendish, Bernard Eisel and Wout Poels to Bahrain Merida. According to Cycling Weekly, Cavendish has already been rumoured to be joining Bahrain, as Poels could be leaving Team Ineos. Now for me, Bahrain Merida seem to still have this old school European mentality about their team. Yes, they're not owned by Europeans. However, I do feel you still got that old school European vibe to that team, whereas you compare it to somewhere like Team Ineos who have all these the marginal gains system, and they seem a lot more professional, a lot more rounded team, whereas you look at Bahrain Merida, it just seems very fractured within there. However, next year with Rod Ellingworth coming in as team principal, and don't forget Ellingworth took Cavendish to his World Championship, he basically invented the Great Britain talent team and brought some amazing riders through, the likes of Cav, the likes of Geraint Thomas, Ed Clancy, and obviously he coached a lot of the Team Sky riders. He's coming in there as a team principal, and I've got a feeling that Bahrain Merida might be making some huge changes in 2020, which might actually facilitate, you know, the rebirth of Mark Cavendish if he decides to go there, the fact that he's going to be teaming up with his teammate and best friend Bernard Eisel, and the fact that they could be bringing Wout Poels in there as a GC contender is pretty exciting. I would love to see Wout Poels move to a team where he is classed as GC leader, because you've seen him riding for Team Sky and Team Ineos since 2015 now, I think, and he's just been the most solid super domestique anyone could ever wish for. He is absolutely solid, like a goddamn metronome up in those mountains for those riders. But give him free rein, Could he potentially challenge Team Ineos? Am I talking stupid, or does he genuinely have a chance of, taking GC at the Tour de France in next year's Tour de France or the year after, with a team around him supporting him solely? Because we saw him in the mountains at this year's Tour de France. He if he had free rein to go and do it, and he wasn't working as hard, what could he have potentially done? Because he was still up there, he was close by some of the GC contenders after he'd blown his load, and he was, going out the back, and the Egan Bernals and the Geraint Thomases were going up the road. So who knows? Leave your comments down below. Could this be the rebirth of Mark Cavendish, or have we seen the best of him? And Wout Poels, potential GC leader in Bahrain Merida? And finally, a bit of transfer news that's not actually transfer news, because it appears that there is no transfer, but Sam Bennett is having a problem getting out of his contract at Bora Hansgrohe. Over on Cycling Weekly, the headline reads, Sam Bennett in a battle to free himself from Bora Hansgrohe, according to sources. Sam Bennett is trying to break free of an early agreement with Bora Hansgrohe in order to sign with De Koning Quickstep for 2020, according to Cycling Weekly sources. Bennett is believed to have signed an offer letter in May with some financial conditions spelled out that the German World Tour outfit Bora Hansgrohe would keep him for 2020. Cycling Weekly understands that the UCI arbitration panel will make the decision after Bennett, his manager and his team's general manager, Ralph Dienck, presented their cases. However, after being left out of the Giro this year and the Tour de France, and the focus mainly going on Peter Sagan, the Irishman wants out in favour of German sprinter Pascal Ackermann. And during this year's Tour de France, it was all hands on deck supporting Peter Sagan for that green jersey and Emmanuel Buchmann in the overall GC. So yeah, this case is still ongoing. Potentially Bennett might be out of his contract after this case is resolved, and he might be able to freely move to De Koning Quickstep in 2020. However, I've got a feeling that Bora Hansgrohe won't want him to actually go, because, look how he's performing in La Vuelta. He is on fire, and you can't help thinking whether it was the Giro or the Tour de France, he would have got some stage wins. And I think we spoke about this in the comments below a couple of weeks ago now about Bora Hansgrohe, and I said Bora Hansgrohe will be kicking themselves that they didn't take Sam Bennett to the Tour de France with the form he's in now. But other people said, they were all working for Sagan. You couldn't have had two people there sprinting. But when you look at Sagan's results, yes, he won one stage, and yes, he won the green jersey. But I think if Bennett was in there, almost like a free reigning role to be able to pick up wheels wherever he can and try and go for victories himself, the Bora Hansgrohe would have actually had one of the best Tour de France's out of the whole teams. They would have taken a top 4 spot in GC. They would have taken the green jersey. And potentially, if Sam Bennett is on the form in the Tour de France like he is in La Vuelta, he could have taken 4 or 5 stages. Now, before we get into La Vuelta, let's talk about this man, Tyler Hamilton. Do you know who he is? If you've followed cycling for any amount of time, then you will know who he is. Ex-teammate to Lance Armstrong, the writer of the Secret Race book, which is just an unbelievable look into the world of professional cycling and how Lance Armstrong and the US Postal Team went about their doping plans, as well as CSC rider as well later on in his career. Now, in a recent feature on the Cycling Tips podcast, which is a Where Are They Now feature, where they look at the lives of ex-professionals, and the focus this week was on Tyler Hamilton, spoke fairly openly and freely about, his time with US Postal. Now, one thing that seemed to have pricked the ears of the whole cycling community within this podcast is this moment here.
Question for you, mechanical doping. Remember when that cyclocross female racer got caught with a motor?
Yeah.
I remember thinking, that didn't start at the women's under 23 level.
No.
Did it start from the top? Or did it start from the amateur level? Mechanical doping, now they're x-raying bikes.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Well,
it was a thing, supposedly.
It was a thing.
Yep.
But you never heard about it, or you don't know anything about it?
I have some inside sources that...
No, way more than it's been, I guess, leaked out to the press, really. And it was a thing. It was a thing, and riders were using it. And there's also magnetic wheels that they were using too, and that could be engaged from the director's car from behind. So
they really were in with.
I don't know. That's what I heard, and from the sources I heard from, it sounded pretty legit. But luckily, they saw that it was a problem, and they started doing these X-rays and all that.
So you think those X-rays and the testing of mechanical doping has quelled some of that?
I hope so. I would hope so. Yeah.
It's kind of amazing.
But there's been, you probably know. Yeah. But supposedly, from my sources, there were people using it at the highest level.
But is Tyler Hamilton a trustworthy source? Can we believe what he's saying here? On one hand, he lied for years and years and years and hid his doping program and managed to to fool the whole cycling world and cycling fans into thinking that he was a much better athlete than he actually was. Granted, let's be honest, he still put in the hard work. He still broke his collarbone and ground down all his teeth. Such was his effort, such was his work ethic as well. So on one hand, you can't help thinking, right, we're not going to believe this compulsive liar. But on the other hand, as he redeemed himself by writing this book, by exposing everything that he did as well as the team did in the secret race. If you've not read it, go and read it. It's amazing. You need to go and read it. And now, is he a trustworthy source? So when he says something like this guy has no reason to lie anymore. This guy isn't getting anything out of cycling anymore, so he has no reason to lie. So when he says riders used to use mechanical doping in terms of motors as well as mechanical wheels, and mechanical wheels that were controlled by DSs. Now, earlier in the podcast, he actually said that, I don't know whether he was alluding to it at the time, but when you hear what he says afterwards, you can't help thinking, right, is that what he meant by that? But the fact that these DSs can control these magnetic wheels from the car, so if the rider wants a hand, boom, he can turn it on, via remote control. I mean, he says his sources are legitimate, but has he just opened a can of worms here? Now, obviously, the conspiracy theorists among us, and I know they don't like being called that, but the guys on Twitter who just go on and on and on and on and on and on about the fact that every single person's doping, and every single person, or a lot of people at the World Tour level, are using magnetic wheels and motors in their bikes. Are they right? Now, the reason I don't believe them, and the reason I feel that they have no authority on this, is because, one, they don't use their real names. They hide behind aliases 9 times out of 10. And two, they don't ever bring any proof to the table. I'll believe them all day if they bring me proof. Do you know what I mean? And if this person who remains anonymous comes forward and says, this is who I am, I used to be a mechanic for this team, and I've got pictures of these wheels, look at these are what we used to use, then I'd go, all right, so it did happen. But you feel like these people are just trolls. They hide behind an alias. They don't really ever have any proof to what they're saying. They just kind of hope that they're right, I guess. But maybe they are right, because Tyler Hamilton has no reason to lie. He's been part of it. He's seen it. He's got sources that say this is what's being used. But where does it stand right now? Are they still being used? Were they ever used? The UCI and their iPads going up and down the frames and the wheels, is that actually finding motors? Or are we going to find out later down the line, 5-10 years down the line, that everybody was using magnetic wheels, everybody was using motors to help assist them up those climbs? And man, I'd hate for the conspiracy theorists to be right, but at the same time, they might be. Now, if you want to check out the full podcast, follow the link down in the description across to Cycling Tips. Great little insight, great little interview. You should check it out. Okay, so La Vuelta Stage 5. What an absolute firecracker of a stage. Now, if you don't want to know the results, go and watch the results and then come back. I don't want to give any spoilers away. I don't want no one commenting down below saying, don't give it away, stop telling us what's happened. We came to you for cycling news, but don't tell us all the cycling news. So if you've not seen the stage highlights from La Vuelta, go and do that before you get spoiled here. But if you're ready for my analysis of it, let's get it underway. So stage 5 was supposedly classed as a hilly stage, but I'd class it more as mountainous because there was a mountaintop finish. So it was said to be a very exciting finale to this stage, and it looked like a lot of the GC contenders would be showing their cards here, and we were in for a shake-up in the GC. Was Nico Roach going to hold on to that red jersey? Well, before we get into the GC, let's talk about what happened with the breakaway, because that breakaway stayed away all day and they fought for the victory of stage 5. In the break, we had 3 riders in total. We had 2 from Burgos BH. That was Angel McLovin and also Yetzi Ball. And the third rider was Cofidis rider Jose Herrera, and he looked likely to be the winner of this stage if the breakaway managed to stay away, which it did. The final climb of the day was a very tough one. The breakaway looked to be struggling with around 8k to go, and there was still a chance that it might get caught. Bearing in mind the last 5 kilometers of this climb was an average of 10%. There were loads of riders dropping out of contention of the peloton. Now, with 7.3k to go, Madrazo had been spat from the group. It looked like that was the last we were going to see of him, and he'd had his day. He was going to maintain that leader's jersey in the mountain classification, and he was going to let the other 2 fight it out. However, when the cameras cut back to him, there he is again. He was back with the 2 riders at the front. Now, as I was watching this, I thought it's only a matter of time now before this guy just goes out the back in tremendous style. He's done what he needed to do. He doesn't need to do anything else. If he can help and support his teammate so he doesn't have to do any work, then brilliant. Madrazo's done his job for the day. But it appeared that he'd not read that script. And then eventually we got down to the Flamme Rouge, and eventually Madrazo cracked again. This is it, he's done. He's got to be done. And bearing in mind, while Madrazo was either going up the road or going out the back, it was Jose Herrera that was doing the majority of the work. He was on the front of that two-man group the whole time. And you could clearly see what was happening. Madrazo was just trying to cause as much mayhem as he could, trying to force Jose Herrera's hand to make sure he works and pulls Jetse Bol all the way to the top. So eventually, when they get to the top, Madrazo's done his job. Jose Herrera's got nothing left. Jetse Bol takes the victory. That's what I thought was going to happen. That's what it looked like was going to happen. Now, with just around 600 meters to go, Madrazo decided to have one last ditch attempt at potentially cracking Jose Herrera. I presume this was his last play. This was it now. He was just going to accelerate off the front. Herrera was going to come to him. Then they were going to do the old 1-2 over the top. Jetse Bol would have won. But that didn't happen either. Now, this attack from Madrazo was one of the most unenthusiastic, or it seemed to be the most unenthusiastic attack I've ever seen. He kind of lazily just slowly started to get away from them a little bit. And then all of a sudden they went around the corner, the camera angle changed, and he'd gone. He'd got out of the saddle and he'd put in a proper massive effort. And at that point, I think with about 200, 150 meters to go, you knew Madrazo was going to win this stage. And he bloody went and won it. And not only that, Jetse Bol finished second. So Burgos P8 had a 1-2. And the Vuelta. Unbelievable. But GC, what happened with GC? Well, Nico Roach unfortunately lost his red leader's jersey, and in place, Astana rider Miguel Angel Lopez. He now takes a 14-second lead at the top of the GC standings from Primoz Roglic. In third position is Nairo Quintana, and Valverde a further 5 seconds behind. Now, it all kicked off for the GC at the bottom of that climb. It started with Team Ineos and a few other GC teams pacing hard. Team Ineos were clearly going to be working for David de la Cruz there, and with 9k to go, they had an 8-minute gap to close down if they wanted to take that overall stage victory and some bonus points with it. Team Ineos were going mad on the front, absolutely smashing it. And I think at this point here, they actually believed that they might catch this 3-man break up the road. But it wasn't to be. When we got down to about 4k to go, David de la Cruz, he was out the back. And it was Hugh Carthy for EF Education First, who was at the front, pacing it hard. He was dropping riders left, right and centre. He managed to get the group down to around 25 riders. Higuita was gone, Wout Poels was gone, Kelderman was gone, Latour was gone, and then Alejandro Valverde attacks. He dropped Roach, he dropped Uran, and he dropped Nieve. And no surprise, he also dropped his teammate Nairo Quintana. While Quintana tried to pace himself back up to it, it seemed that Alejandro Valverde was just on the front, just pulling it every now and again when he felt that Quintana was getting a little bit too close. He'd just accelerate again and just have a little bit of a dig again. I don't know if it was intentional, I don't know, but hey, the great teamwork continues in Movistar. And then with 2.3k to go, the decisive GC move was made, and it was made by Miguel Angel Lopez. He fully committed to his effort. He instantly gaps them, and all the GC riders are in pieces up and down this climb. Valverde attacks again with 1.9k to go out of his group, which drops Aru. He carries on fighting, and then at the end, Lopez managed to secure 4th spot, and Roglic and Valverde came over the line together. The biggest winners in GC today, and looking really strong, you've got Astana rider Lopez, you've got Primoz Roglic, Alejandro Valverde, Nairo Quintana. Yes, he got dropped, but he's still in 3rd position on the GC, still early days, and if they ever get some cohesion in that team, one of those 2 riders are going to be in it. The biggest losers on GC, Nico Roach, obviously he's lost that red jersey. The chances are he won't be seeing that red jersey ever again this tour. You got Uran, who had a bad day, Esteban Chavez, who had a bad day, Rafa Majka, one rider who improved his GC standings by 13 places and who is up to 9th position now, is Pogačar. He's still 1 minute 49 behind, but he did look relatively strong out there. He definitely looks the best UAE rider. Thanks for watching, everybody. Now, if you've not done already, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. If you're interested in live Zwift streams, live online racing streams, then you're going to want to hit that because we're starting streaming next week. We're going to be bringing you live interactive streams if you've not been part of them. They are hella good fun, so make sure you get involved. Get involved in the chat as well. Don't just sit there doing whatever you want to do while a man profusely sweats all over his webcam for your entertainment. If you disliked it, feel free to hit that dislike button. Leave a comment and let us know why. Are you glad that Pritchard's back? Make sure you say yes. Until tomorrow,